And okay, so can you guys see my screen? Awesome. Let's do this. I describe MindStudio as being a platform for optimizing business processes with AI. We make it really easy to build these things we call AI agents. Like, why do you build them? Like, what do they do? Well, they're built to automate manual work primarily, or like overwhelmingly, right? Today, we as knowledge workers do a bunch of things. We show up in the morning, we have our cup of coffee, we log into some systems, we evaluate like some data, we enrich some data, we do some research and we transform it in some way, we collaborate with others and we kind of put it into another SaaS product. And so sort of the average knowledge work sort of goes, well, all that stuff is manual. Now a lot of it, large portion of that can be automated, and it can be automated by you, meaning by each employee can automate their own workflows the way they want them automated, because they're the ones that know the best. MindStudio is quite popular. There's over 200,000 of these AI agents that have been built and deployed and sort of inside of all kinds of organizations, obviously used by solopreneurs and small businesses and enterprises, government. This is His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the British Tax Authority, the British IRS is a big customer, ServiceNow, New York Times, etc. And then while these aren't enterprise customers yet, there are people inside of all of these organizations that are using MindStudio to, automate various parts of their business processes. As I mentioned, we're venture backed. We've raised $36 million. There's a lot of senior Googlers on this list. You can always go to our website and check it out. Again, this is because I was at Google. Also, Michael Eisner, the former CEO of Disney, and sort of a bunch of other interesting people. Okay. And again, so this is kind of the broad situation. And I assume, how many of you are product managers, currently working as product managers? Or keep your hands up. Sorry, I've got like multiple screens here I've got to get through to see. Okay, great. So a bunch of you are product managers. Others are in other capacities. Oh, by the way, when I say show of hands, I actually mean like this instead of using the interface. If you raise your hand in the interface, we're going to think you have a question, and we might want to pause, and so you might want to lower those hands. Awesome. Look at that. You guys are great at following instructions. Thanks so much. Okay, so this kind of broad situation, but you get the point that you can apply this to your own job function. Okay, so companies as a whole, are all looking to figure out like what are we supposed to do with AI, right? And a bunch of companies have licensed a bunch of new SaaS products and things like that, and are kind of message to them is, listen, whatever it is you're doing as a company or you as an individual and your workflow works, it works fine. Can it be better? Yes. And so you can now focus on the way you do things and simply make them sort of better, faster, and to run more autonomously. You don't have to dramatically change things. You just need to keep doing the same things you're doing, but do them, again, smarter, faster, better. And of course, the people who know where all of these kind of inefficiencies lie in any business or any job function are the people who are actually doing it, right? Because they're the ones that are doing the work, okay? And so our approach is like just train your people to do these things, give them the tools, and let them automate their own work. And again, as I mentioned, this is very successful. That's why we've got over 200,000 of these things that are deployed. And sort of MindStudio is this platform, seen as this comprehensive solution where we do a bunch of training of people. You're currently involved in this like 2-hour training. We also do a 2-day full day boot camp. We do a 30-day boot camp, 5-day boot camp. And so we can train people and then we kind of let them loose in organizations. I'm not going to spend any time on this. It's also somewhere on our website, but there's lots of people who are, on LinkedIn raving about how MindStudio has like changed their lives, which is awesome. Like that makes me feel really good when we see all these things. Okay, as I mentioned, like there's sort of a menu of trainings. Most people, by the way, learn to use MindStudio completely on their own. We have this thing called MindStudio University. You can just go to our website and click Learn. There's like tons of tutorials, video tutorials and documentation. But if you want any of these sort of like longer, more immersive, more hands-on things, we've got a schedule. I'm sure my team can share that and we can go. And by the way, those longer ones are priced, but Merrily has a discount of 20%. So maybe She and her team can share that as well later. Okay, so again, we're finishing up this deck really quickly here. So we're about to start working with MindStudio. It sort of looks like this. This is, the dark mode. We also have a light mode. And it's this like thing where you arrange these, like we call them blocks on this canvas and then configure them. Anyone can learn to use it. Over 10,000 people have already learned to use it. Again, most of those completely on their own and are professional builders. By the way, we also offer, again, in these big boot camps, multiple levels of certification and all of that. We have lots of organizations that are extraordinarily, security, privacy, compliance sensitive, like the British Internal Revenue Service, that, by the way, uses this in HR. They primarily use this to help automate recruiting. And so we have a trust center and various case studies, and also you'll be seeing this Chrome extension that we have that's completely open source. So, we pass with flying colors inside of any organization that like looks at this and says, oh, should I be scared of letting my team use this or not? We are model agnostic. In fact, right out of the box, we give you over 200 AI models that you can just use immediately. You don't have to go and create your own account. You don't have to get your own API keys. They're just there for you to use. So you can very easily compare models to one another. We'll do some of that. You can very easily switch models, providers for sort of various steps. And so this is awesome. It's just a quality of life thing we just offer. You still have to pay for usage, but it's the same price as we pay, meaning there's zero markup. It's the same price you would pay if you were using these models directly. We just let you have these API keys automatically. What I'm going to teach you today, and what we teach in our boot camps, is how to build these agents completely manually, because I think it's really important for people to, one, understand how easy it is to build them completely manually, and two, just to understand how it works. But once you've learned how to build them manually, you don't have to build them manually. We have basically vibe coding interfaces for front ends and outputs and things in the, in the middle, prompts, etc., where you can basically ask MindStudio to build all of these things for you. And then, because you know how to build them manually, you can easily modify them, change them, etc. So it's really, really powerful. I'm not sure we're going to get to this today, but we'll see. Maybe we will. And then kind of last thing is, with MindStudio, you can build many different types of AI agents. These are some of the kind of categories of them. One is you can build applications, meaning screens and forms, front ends and back ends, full stack applications. These are web applications, but web applications run on any mobile phone now, smartphone, and obviously on desktop, so you can use them. And we make it dumb easy. We're going to build one to build these, cross-platform applications that have AI backends, which is amazing, and have just simple screens and form front ends. Okay, so that's these AI-powered web apps. We also make it easy to build, autonomous agents that are primarily run on a schedule, right? And we'll build one or two of those as well. Where I'll give you an example. I've got an app that runs on a schedule that every day goes and checks N8N's terms of service to see if they've changed their terms of service at all, because that's a sign that they're innovating, and this thing grabs the terms of service, compares it to yesterday's, and then if there's a difference, it analyzes the difference and tells me, like, what are they changing and what might that mean, okay? And so there are organizations that have, dozens of these that are running, that are just monitoring things. Or one of our big customers is a company called Advanced Local, 100-year-old newspaper publishing company. They've got over 300 MindStudio agents that are running, all built by one non-technical person in the organization. And dozens of those agents monitor different industries that they report on. For example, one monitors every day at 9 a.m. Pacific. It wakes up and it goes and does a lot of research on the legal industry to see what's happened in the last 24 hours. In the legal industry, it analyzes it, does fact checking, pulls out kind of all the data, and then sends all of that to all of their reporters in their different newspapers that report on that. That used to be manually done by these journalists, and that would take on average around 3 hours for them to do. Now, again, one of those over 300 agents just does that. And so just like massive savings of time. That's these autonomous agents. You can build agents that are triggerable by a browser extension. Those are the first ones that we will play with here in a moment and also build. extraordinarily powerful. So again, we'll get to them as I give you the demo. You can build agents that are email triggered. We'll build one of those as well. I'm making a lot of promises. We're going to build a lot of agents here, yeah, in this next 2 hours or hour and 40 minutes. And so that you can, these agents automatically get an email address. And you can just like lob emails at them. You can take like a giant thread. I've got a thread here. It's got 96 messages. You can just throw that at them and get them to like unpack it for you and find all the things that have been said and all the commitments that have been made and, all the action items for each person in the thread and like all of that. And so that's a really powerful thing. And then you can kind of finally, you can build agents that are programmatically triggerable, via APIs, webhooks, and this thing called MCP. Who's heard of MCP? Show of hands like this. Yeah, okay. So there is no faster and easier way to build MCP servers than with MindStudio, meaning if there is, I'd like to see it. We've never found one. And so this is a really powerful thing as well. Okay, we're done with the deck, thank God. Again, I really despise these kinds of things. Okay, let's just go play. So this is a long read. Now, it doesn't matter what the long read is. This one is about something going on with movie going, but it's just dense with data. And like, if you think about it, like, what do we do as product managers or any other kind of knowledge workers? We spend our lives sort of like parsing stuff in our mental energy, our brain power, and we sit there and we have to go through this dense thing and like figure out what matters to us, what doesn't matter to us. It's like a lot of time you'd need to spend in doing it. Well, I don't do that anymore. Excuse me. See on the right-hand side here, got this little thing I'm moving around. This is a Chrome extension. You can click this thing, and these are AI agents that I have pinned. Pinned means like favorited. I use them frequently, so I have access to them. I can also open up this M and then get kind of all my other AI agents as well that aren't just pinned. But I'm going to use this first one. I'm going to click this button. And what's happening now, it's as if I did like Command A or Control A on this entire document and sent that to my AI agent. And this AI agent is specifically asked to basically go through this with a fine-tooth comb and extract all of the salient points, like all of the learnings of the things. It's what I would have done if I had the time and mental energy to go through this and take sort of copious notes. But I don't have to do that. In fact, this thing is done. I can copy it. I can share it with others. Or I can sort of continue to engage with this thing, and I could say like extract all entities mentioned. And it'll go through it again, and it'll start to extract a bunch of entities that are mentioned. Or I can get it to do sort of countless other things. And again, I'm not using my mental energy. This is obviously faster than any human could ever do it. And again, this is the first agent we will make. And you'll see just how dumb easy it is to make these kinds of little magic buttons. I often refer to them as superpowers, because no mere mortal could possibly compete with someone that has these kinds of buttons. Like, it would just be impossible. Okay, cool. Let's close this. This exact same button works great on videos. So this is a 2-hour YouTube video. I've run this on 8-hour YouTube videos. If I push this button, this agent knows how to go and find the transcript on this page. And then it grabs this transcript over here and sends it to the agent. And the agent goes through this 2-hour video and pulls out all the things that I would care about. I don't need to listen to these guys' voices. I don't need to hear their whatever verbose chatter. I just want to understand, like, what's the point? Jeff Bezos is an important guy. I want to understand what he has to say. Well, there is no faster way to do it than this. And so in minutes, I can consume, many, many hours of content where mere mortals can simply watch these things at 2 or 3 times speed. And of course, you can't even take notes like that. And so, like, again, superpower, the ability to consume dramatically more, in order of magnitude more video content. Because again, video is this like linear medium, and that's hard, and this is awesome. Okay, so, or, I apologize for taking you to Twitter, but sometimes there are things in Twitter that you might want to understand what's happening, like why are American jobs collapsing? Well, I don't need to read any of this junk. I can simply push this button, And you get the point. It runs on anything you see in the browser. You can also run it on like giant PDFs that I'm about to show you, okay? And so cool. So now I can understand what's happening with jobs. Okay, let's keep going. So this is a profile. This is also on Twitter, but again, this could be on LinkedIn or it could be on like some website that shows, people that are going to be attending or speaking at an event. And there's like a bunch of things about people. And I want to understand not content. I want to understand people, a person. And so I can click this button. And again, it kind of does the same thing. It grabs like all of this stuff, sends it to this agent. And this agent isn't trying to like extract all the salient points. This agent is tasked with like, help me understand this person so I could like reach out to them and build a relationship or sell them. Okay. And so it looks at different dimensions of the things that are found here. And again, I used to do all of this junk manually. And of course, now it's just like insane that I can like do this. Okay. Somebody is unmuted. Thank you. Okay. One last thing on this. So this is a 182-page financial disclosure from Goldman Sachs. Okay. We're going to make a button that does this here in a second, but I've got a little button over here, financial analyst. I could click it. It takes like 2 minutes to run on this thing, so I'm not going to click it. But it does the same thing. It analyzes this and gives me a fundamental analysis based on all of this stuff. That's crazy. By the way, it's like a bunch of law firms that are now using MindStudio because like their job is to spend their life reading. Well, they don't need to do that anymore. Let the agents read and summarize and analyze, and they're there to sort of like sign off on things. Okay. Okay, again, we're almost done with demos soon. We're going to build, so 2 more demos. And by the way, these are like random demos, or these like the canonical demos, not even close. Like out of those 200,000 agents, like which one should I demo? I'm not sure. These are just some demos here. So, this is a job description, right? Now, I'm not looking for a job, but if I was, in the past, I'd need to like go parse this job and like figure out like, how do I make it clear that I'm the right person for this job? I need to like write a cover letter. And I used to like, as much as I dread PowerPoint presentations, I dreaded writing cover letters because that was like a big waste of time. Like I hated it. Well, I would never have to do that anymore because I've got this little button over here. It's called Custom Cover Letter Generator. And then this thing, as I mentioned, with MindStudio, you can build screens and forms. Now, I apologize. I rushed through this and I could have made the screen a little bit nicer looking, but it's just got a little button. And I can just give it my resume. And now it knows the job description and it knows my resume. And so it can write a cover letter, a custom cover letter that makes it clear that I'm the perfect person for this job and like match my experience specifically to all the requirements here. Now, guess what? I'm also the perfect person for all of these other jobs. And for me to be able to make that clear, it's just a click of a button. Again, the time savings and mental energy savings are incalculable as far as I'm concerned, like for mental energy. Okay, last demo before we start building. So as I mentioned, I've now raised for 3 companies that I've built over $140 million in venture capital. And so I have a very kind of broad network of VCs, or my former friends that were my friends still, but they were former entrepreneurs, now have moved to the dark side and now are VCs. But periodically I like to engage in a practice I call VC collecting. I'll show you how that works. And so the outcome of my VC collecting is it populates, in this case, this Airtable database. There's another one I'll show you later that does it on Google Sheets. It doesn't matter. It can be any kind of database. And here, as you can see, these are all VCs, and we get their name, their photo, their current job, their current company, meaning they're all venture funds. Professional summary, their education, all of their education, key experiences, their latest posts. And again, these things are short here, but like when you double click on them, they're actually long. And in fact, if you can see here, these are, let me see if I can make this bigger. These are arrays of things and JSON objects of things. Why? Because this data actually isn't from me. This is for another agent I have that when I turn it on, it goes and harasses these people via email until they take a meeting with me or respond to me, okay? Most of the time, that agent is not running because with great power comes great responsibility. The other thing, by the way, this thing does is it gets their email address. The way that it works is I run it on, again, I could run it anywhere, but I primarily run it on LinkedIn. So I can like do a search on LinkedIn, and then I could, again, in the past, if I wanted to reach out to this person, I kind of need to like scan their profile and try to understand what they're about, and then click, connect and try to figure out how to, in like 300 characters, get them to take a meeting with. This shit's hard. Well, I don't do that anymore. All I need to do is I've got a little button here, LinkedIn contact to Airtable. I just click it. By the way, it doesn't have any output, so I can just close it and I can just move on to another one and I can say, oh, this person is interesting. Let me add them. As you can see, that's what I mean by like VC collecting. You just kind of go through and say, oh, I like these. And again, by the way, I showed you it also grabs their email address here. Yeah. But LinkedIn doesn't have email addresses. And so it uses another service behind the scenes. So it does more work to go and find their email address and enrich it and put it into this. Okay. So kind of a bunch of different things I showed you, but again, just sort of scratching the surface. Let's go ahead and build an agent. Okay. And so MindStudio.ai. Now, make sure you don't blink because that's how fast we're going to do this here. Okay. And we're going to do it a bunch of times. So I'm just going to run through it and then we'll do it and I'll stop in some places. I'm going to click My Workspace and I'm going to click Build New Agent. And then I'm going to give it a name. And again, here I'm going to say TLDR. I can give it an icon. I can control all kinds of things about it. I'm not going to touch any of that. So I just gave it a name. Agents are made of workflows, one or many. This one's just going to have one. And each workflow has a trigger that needs to be set. We're going to choose browser extension. We'll also build some agents that use other triggers here. And then I'm simply going to go here. And we have many of these. They're called blocks. In fact, there's 110 here. There's another 663 here. New ones being added all the time. Here, I'm just going to use this top one, generate text. Another name for a block like this would be call a large language model and ask it to do something. And the thing that we're going to ask it to do is to extract all learnings. By the way, this is just a prompt. So like everybody's played around with like ChatGPT and Claude, right? You can say things many different ways. You don't say things. You could say extract all salient points, enumerate all the things that matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to say extract all learnings. And I'm going to type double curly braces. Okay, I'm going to make this a bit bigger. Double curly braces, some people don't know where they are on the keyboard. They're like right next to the square brackets, like right above your enter key. Okay. As soon as you type double curly braces, you actually get a drop down of a bunch of things you can add. We're looking for this thing right here called page content. And by the way, that's it. We're done. We could literally publish this agent now and run it. That's that magic button that can do long reads and can do email and can do YouTube and can do PDFs and can do all of that. Okay. Before we run it again, let's take a quick look at it and say, what does it do? As soon as I said that the trigger is going to be a browser extension, this section right here got populated. And what it means, we call these launch variables. And different sort of run modes have different launch variables that are provided to you. When it's browser extension, the system automatically tells us what's the URL of the page from which the button was clicked. And so it grabs the URL, and that gets stored in a variable called URL. And so we just have access to that variable whenever we want it. Metadata. This is the metadata in the head of the document, out of the DOM. We get that. Page content. Page content is just like everything that's visible on the page. Okay? Again, Command A, Control A, that's page content. Full text is sort of a deprecated version of page content, but it's here, still here. User selection is if the user is selecting anything on the page, for example, when they're clicking the button, that gets loaded into the variable called user selection. And then finally, raw HTML is all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we can grab all of that as well. Here, I just took this page content. Again, that's how that TLDR agent works. It just grabs all of this stuff right here. By the way, including all of this navigation, all of that, that comes with that. But these models they know that this is not relevant and that this is what they're looking for and analyzing it. And then we're just calling a model and we're saying extract all learnings. We're providing it the page content. And then right here, there's this thing called user behavior, output behavior. This one's display to user, but we can also, I'll show you, we can save it to a variable and then continue down our workflow and do other things. So we're just going to display it to the user. Now, this one is by default using Claude 3.7 Sonnet. But if I click here, as I mentioned, I've got access to over 200 models. If I want to switch, I just click use, and now I'm using that model. And you can do that for every step in your workflow as we do it. Okay, and so that's it. We published this thing, it's ready. Now I can go back here. And again, these things are pinned. Pinned means they're my favorite. Well, this one we just made, so it can't be my favorite yet. So I've got to click on this little M button over here. I'm going to close this. Click on M. That's going to open up the side drawer, and it gives me lots of agents here that are available. I'll show you these later. Here's the one we just made, TLDR. And I can simply click Run. And again, it knows how to grab all the content on this page, and it's going to go through and it's going to extract all the things on this page. That was pretty easy, right? To make something like this. By the way, with this pattern, browser extension triggered, call a model with some command, and just pass it this page content variable. With just this pattern, you can make countless little button superpowers. Think of them as like AI-powered macros. Each one of us have different needs for the types of buttons we would make. And once you go play with this, you'll realize you'll have dozens of them that are amazing. They'll save you countless mental energy and time. Okay, let's close this and let's make another agent. And by the way, the average time to build agents is like anywhere from 3 minutes to 15 minutes, 30 minutes. It's very rare that anybody spends sort of longer building agents because, again, these things are quite easy to build. Okay, let's make an agent here. I'm going to call this stock analyst. And then, again, I'm not going to give it an icon, but you should. I'm going to make this one, again, browser extension triggered. That means we're going to get all this stuff, like we want this page content. I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to choose this generate text again. And this time, instead of writing the prompt myself, I'm going to click on this little thing here. See my mouse here? And this means like open this prompt up in full screen. And at the bottom left here is this thing called generate. And I can say, provided with a stock, do a, fundamental analysis on it. And that's it. By the way, it's a shitty prompt. But when I say generate, it's going to take that shitty prompt and it's going to turn it into a much better prompt that we can then modify if we want and use it. So this is a thing that's built into MindStudio. By the way, this thing itself, this prompt generator, is just a MindStudio AI agent. It was built with MindStudio and then integrated back into MindStudio to be a helper in MindStudio. So now we get this prompt right here. Well, this is a much more interesting prompt. And by the way, what we need to do is still give it this page content thing. And so good practice in interacting with models and doing it from MindStudio or N8N, or if you're just talking to these models, is to wrap your content here. So you remember we did this page content. It's best practice to put it in these XML tags, right? And I'm just going to say stock to explain to this thing. When I say stock, what is it? Well, the stock is the stuff that's going to be in this page content. You can use any words you want here. These are just labels, but they help the agent the model, in this case, Claude 3.7 Sonnet, it helps it understand what's the prompt and what's the thing the prompt is acting upon, which in this case is this thing. I could have called this content. I could have called it anything I want, but it's best to call it something that helps the model understand what do we mean by stock. Okay, it doesn't matter if you put it at the top or in the middle or at the end. We like to put it at the top because then you can always see, because your prompt might be very long, you can always see like what you're passing to this thing. Okay, and again, we're done. We're just going to display it to the user, and I'm going to publish it. And now let's go ahead and pick a stock. And then again, I could run it on this page, or I could run it on this page that's got a bunch of information about the stock. By the way, it also has information about like all these other stocks. And notice I sort of didn't provide it any more guidance on like what's the stock, whatever. But like a human, it's smart enough to understand that if I run it on this page, that I want this, this primary stock, not these other stocks. And so I can click here again, and I can find my financial analyst, stock analyst, and I can run it. And it's going to grab this page, and it's going to do a fundamental analysis on it. You guys with me so far? Okay. It's the same agent, right? It's the same agent. It's trigger with a browser extension. It's give it a command and give it page content. So again, with this pattern, you can build countless agents. Okay, let's build another agent. And so I'm going to go to, by the way, I'm not sure. Do you guys see this like red splotch here, this like thing? I'm not sure if I'm doing that or somebody else is doing it. I don't know how to get rid of it. So I apologize. I have no idea what this thing periodically.
I'll get rid of it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to say build new agent. And what we're going to build now is we're going to call it, come on, network. We're going to call it, I'm going to call it content to linked in post. Okay. And we're going to also make it a browser extension. So we have page content. And now look at this. I'm going to say generate text. And I'm going to say the same thing that we just did before, extract all learnings. And I'm just going to give it page content. Okay. Again, if you are just doing it where it's a super simple prompt, you don't need to wrap this in those XML tags, but it's probably good practice to do it anyway. I'm just going to be lazy. And instead of displaying it to the user, I'm going to save it to a variable. Now I can call this variable anything I want, but I'm just going to call it learnings. Okay. So you see, where before we were displaying it to the user, now I've changed it to save to variable, and I simply gave it a name. Okay. Now let's continue. I'm going to call a model again. So another model call. We already called the model, and we got back to learnings. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it these learnings. And in here, I'm just going to put, oops, learnings. This is already a variable we now have, right? Because we just created that variable in this other block. So we have, by the way, tabs don't matter, spaces don't matter. I like to tab it in a little bit, but this is it, okay? So make it bigger. I see some of you squinting. Lauren, thank you. I do the same thing. And so thanks for being, descriptive with your face. I appreciate that. Okay. And so we're going to give it these learnings. And I'm just going to say, take these learnings and write a LinkedIn post. And I'm going to say use emoji because LinkedIn posts without emoji suck. And then, by the way, the other thing, this is best practices. And if we had more time, I would leave it out and then we'd come back to get it. But I know that when you call a model and you ask it to like write a LinkedIn post, it's going to say, here's the LinkedIn post you requested. And I don't want that junk. So I'm going to say return only the post and no other text. Okay. Again, none of these words matter. You can say it in any way, just as long as the meaning is clear. Okay, and here I'm going to go and I'm also going to save this to a variable. And I'm just going to call this post. This is our post. Yeah. And then finally, I can go back here and I can say plus, and I can say view all blocks, and I can search for LinkedIn, and here's create LinkedIn post. And so I can configure it. If I haven't used this before, it's going to ask me to create an account, meaning to log in, not create an account, to log into an account, to OAuth into a LinkedIn account. As you can see, you can OAuth into many accounts. And then once you've configured that, you never, have to log in again. You just have that account you can use. And here, what should I write here? Anybody know? Put it in chat. Sorry, do I even see chat here? I think I closed my chat. Post, there you go. Look at you guys. Oops, typing in the wrong window here. That's right. I want post in here because we have post, right? We created the post. Okay, awesome. And we can just go and run this. Except, again, I now know that it's probably a good idea before I post things to LinkedIn to make sure that like something bad didn't happen. Like the model all of a sudden didn't become racist. And so we're going to do what's known as human in the loop. Human in the loop means we get to supervise this thing. So before we make the post, after we've created the post, but before we post it to LinkedIn, we're going to click plus, and we're going to say display content. Now, this block looks exactly like this block, but they're very different. This one, this is a prompt. It gets sent to a model, in this case, Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and things get returned, and it saves it to this variable. This display content block simply displays things back to the user. And we can just display this thing back to us, and it stops execution and gives us sort of a next button to then continue if we want to proceed. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and publish this. And by the way, look, you can see we can actually open this agent up. So all of these agents are just deployed as web applications. They're just full stack web applications. But as you can see, it says this one's designed for a browser extension. You should probably run it in the browser extension, although you can run it this way as well. Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and we'll go back to this thing here. And now I'm going to click here. And now I'm going to click content to LinkedIn post. And this thing is going to go and start running this. Now, we can actually go back here. And on the left-hand side here, we've always been in this Explorer tab. There's a debugger tab. And so we can actually see this thing running and see all of the data behind the scenes of what's happening on each step, you see? And so on one hand, you could look at this and say, whoa, this looks kind of scary, but it's actually not. Once you spend some time looking at it, it's just like very simple to understand what's happening here. And again, it's going to run and it's going to stop on this block here. See? And there it is. It stopped on that block here. And there's our emoji LinkedIn post about this thing. It's got like hashtags. By the way, I have used these types of things a lot. These LinkedIn posts are great. They perform extraordinarily well. Don't write your own LinkedIn posts. I mean, you can still write them, but like maybe run them through one of these things because it'll make them more LinkedIn-y. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to click next. You'll have to trust me that it's going to post to my LinkedIn profile, then I've got to delete it. You guys can play with it yourself. It's dumb easy. And so cool, we built another agent. So how many have we built so far? 3. Okay. I see a hand raised. Is that, Joanna, because you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. Is it possible for creating writing for posts? Is it possible to add past documents or posting so then it would output something that is similar to my writing style?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's in fact many ways to add them. We're not really going to get into it in the demo here, but you can see it on our website and learn about it. You can upload things via these data sources. So you can upload up to 150 files at a time, up to 5 million words. And so if you just have some document with all your writing, you can just upload it and say, reference this is my writing style, and you're done. There's actually a bunch of other ways. You could point it to your blog, for example. And so we've got, if you click here, we've got a scrape URL block where you can just put your website in here where this thing lives. And then you can say, use this as the template, you know, as the style. And so it can always be updated. There's like a bunch of different ways to do this. But I'm sort of not going to go deeper into that here. Ying?
Hi, yes. You mentioned that there is a OAuth process. Can I just ask about like how you set that up and what does it require?
It literally requires you to, click on create a new account on whatever account you want to create and give it your email and password or log in with Google or whatever. It's like dumb easy. It's like logging into anything else. Like there's nothing there. You just log in.
Stored in
It is. It's stored here. It auths your account here, your workspace. It auths your account so that you can use this in any agent you want that you're building.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So far, so good. Let's build some more agents. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I assume there's like questions that are being answered. Danielle, do you need to break in before I build some more agents?
Maybe, Dmitry, if you don't mind showing folks the agent marketplace. There were folks asking about templates. Is anything already pre-built? So that would be helpful.
Makes sense. Thank you. So I'm going to click My Workspace. So far, we've just clicked on this Build New Agent button. If you look on the left, on this left nav, you see an item called Agents. I'm going to click that. Now, we have a capability here called starring, where if you run an agent, you can, run it, and then you can click here, and you can add it to starred, or you can pin it in your extension, which means then it shows up here. So that's what that start thing is. These are just some agents that I have starred. You're not going to have any when you first run it. This is the name of my workspace here, Dmitry Demo. So these are agents that I've built. It's these plus 262 more. You're not going to have any when you're just starting. But what you will have is over 100 agents that are available for you to use immediately that we have built. And you can just go through here and you can just start using these agents. There's a bunch of really powerful agents here, okay? Or more importantly, what you can do with this is you can take an agent and you can make a copy of it. You can click make a copy, and that will just make a copy of this agent. So all of those agents there are not only agents you can run, they're templates you can use to then modify it, republish it, now you've got your own agent. So we literally just clone that with a click of a button, and now we can use these as templates. So yes, spend some time. Again, let me show you how to get there again. My workspace on the left-hand side, agents, and then there they are. You can look through them. And I might come back to this deep research agent here if we've got some time later and show you what this thing is about. It's crazy.
Maybe one more thing, Dmitry, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Some folks are saying, hey, I need to pay for an account to publish. Can you just show folks how to run in draft mode?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can publish these things, or we can click here, preview, and you can run these in debugger mode, or you can open the draft agent and run it in these modes as well. So there's a bunch of ways you can do it without publishing. Just click preview and run open draft, or run it in debugger. By the way, when you get when you spend a couple hours playing this, most of the time we run things in debugger mode because we're trying to see what's happening. We kind of don't care about the interfaces, we're trying to understand. I kind of compare this to like in the movie The Matrix, when operators like looking at all that crazy shit coming down. He's like, I don't see this. I just like see whatever. This is the same way we are with these things. Okay, Eric, I'll take your question last, and I'm going to keep going. Go ahead.
Great. Yeah, great demo, Dmitry. Super helpful. Very insightful to see how things are going. A couple questions. How is this? I think you're definitely the front runner in this experience. Is there a world where ChatGPT will eventually replicate what you're doing and come up with their own experience, or this is something a lot different from what you see in the competitor field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So great question. Thank you. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever, like these AI models are awesome. And they give us these interfaces that are, chat interfaces where ad hoc, when we've got a question or a need, and it just like came up, we can just ask them to do things. And those things keep getting better and better. And so whenever we have an ad hoc need to do something, we can simply ask the model to do it, and maybe it'll do it. And so really valuable. There are also things that we kind of do, more regularly. And for those things, I propose to you that this is a fact. I think it makes sense to me that it's much better for us to step back and say, what is it exactly that we want to do on an ongoing basis? Lay it out in a workflow that we've built, that we're in control of. Some of these call models, some of these connect to other services, some of these present interfaces, and none of that stuff makes any sense to do with a model, right? And so that's like the distinction. Is it something that you're going to do on an ongoing basis? Make an agent for it. If it's ad hoc something, ask the model to do it.
Gotcha. Okay. And one more thing. So I'd like to see if you're interested to giving a talk to graduate students and an AI program. I think this is definitely of interest or working professionals. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
LinkedIn. And maybe Danielle can repost my LinkedIn profile link. Please feel free and reach out. All of you, please feel free and add.
And you're active on the inbox?
I'm extraordinarily active. That's my primary form of communication.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Even with my family. So you'll get it. Okay. I see, Arshdeep, I see your question. but unless it's like urgent, I want to keep going. Is that cool? Could you ask it in chat and maybe we can come back to it? Is that cool? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. And folks help Arshdeep if that's not the case. Let's make another agent. Again, we all know how to do it. I want you guys to get muscle memory, my workspace, build new agent. And then here on the start block, instead of making it browser extension, which is what we've always done, I'm going to say it's email. And as soon as I say that, it says new launch variables. And we get from, subject, message, attachments. So all of these things get loaded up. When you see this trigger address, we now have this custom email address that was already created for this agent. We can just start sending things to it to trigger this agent. And anything we send to it is going to be pulled out into these variables that we can then use. And again, we can simply say plus generate text, call a model, and we could say, you know, extract all, again, I'm just like writing stuff. None of these things matter. You get the points and action items from this email thread. And here I can just say message. You know, I can also provide it like here are the attachments and all of that. Here I'm just going to say message. And then instead of displaying it to the user, oops. Sorry, sometimes if that happens, just refresh. Instead of displaying it to the user, we're going to save it to a variable, right? And I'm just going to call this analysis, okay? And then I'm going to click plus, and I'm going to say view all blocks, and I'm going to type email, and we have a send email block. And so I can, again, because I've already authenticated, I've OAuth'd to things, I can simply pick the email account that I want. You can't just send to random accounts with this block. To do that, you have to get like Twilio or something like that that we integrate to. If you want to send out like mass emails with this, this is only for your authorized emails. And then here, again, I could into this thing, you know, add the subject of this thing or other things. And here, of course, I can simply do this analysis. By the way, it says, should I automatically try to convert it into an HTML email or not? I'm going to disable it. And I'm done. And again, we can publish this thing, and I can take whatever, this like ginormous email thread here of 96 email messages, and I can simply take these things and, oops, wherever that thing is at the bottom, I can just forward it. I just forward this one. Oops. See, it's so big that my browser is crashing on this damn thing. Nope, I don't want to report spam. Forward, cancel, forward. And I can simply put this thing into here. And again, I can put it in my contacts and call it Joe, you know, or you want to call this thing. And I can send it, and it's going to go ahead and it's going to trigger the agent. And again, we could just watch the debugger of this agent. You know, it takes a moment for email to come through and do all of that. And then it's going to come in here and it's going to run and it's going to analyze it. And then it's going to send the analysis back to me. Okay. So yeah, I'm not going to wait here for it, but you guys get how this works. There it is. And now it's going to call the model and it's going to analyze it and it's going to send this thing back. Like it's the same thing summarizing a web page, right? Like it doesn't matter. You just need to be able to pass it data and come back. So that's an email trigger. Again, you can build countless things like that. I know people who have, you know, a dozen plus email assistants that they call upon whenever they need to do this or that. That thing doesn't have to respond to you. It could go put things in your CRM or like whatever else. Again, with these steps, you can sort of have countless things that you can do with this. Okay, let's build another agent. And I'm trying to show you some variety here. But again, like if you really want to play around with this, just go to the website, click learn. And again, you can just go through these tutorials and this documentation. You can also, again, join these various boot camps. And then if you want like more of this like stuff like this and questions, and we do projects and we do certifications and all that stuff. Okay, let's build a new agent. And agent we're going to build, I'm going to call blog post generator. And I'm going to close this. And I'm going to make it triggered on demand. I'm going to leave this as on demand. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build an application with a front end, okay? And so I'm going to click plus. And we have these things called user inputs. You can find them here, or you can find them on the left. I'm going to click user input. This allows us to create screens and forms, okay? And I'm going to click plus, create new. Now, keep an eye out on the right-hand side as I change this thing here. This is long text. It's like a text area. This is short text. This is text multiple choice. You can have many of these. This is image multiple choice. You can have many of these. This is rating. You get the point. This is upload image, upload file, upload video, etc. So like easy to make these things. The first one I'm going to make is going to be long text. And then, again, it's going to show this form, and the form's going to have a label on it. And I'm going to say, what should the blog post be about? And now we got to store the response in a variable, and I'm going to call that variable topic. With me so far? Long text, give it a name of a variable, give it a label so that we know what to type in. Cool. I'm going to click plus. We're going to add another one. This one, I'm going to make it short text. And here, I'm going to say in what style. And then I'm going to call this style. And then I'm going to add another one. And this one, I'm also going to make short text. And I'm going to say how many words. And this thing, I'm just going to call num words. I can call it anything I want. Again, that's just like for you. Okay. And then I'm done. By the way, you can see them on the left-hand side. There they are. Okay. And by the way, order, you can reorder them. So it depends on, you can change them around, do all that. Okay. And so let's go ahead and publish this thing. Or I can click here, preview, and let's open the draft agent again, so you guys can see that you don't have to publish these things. You can just run them in draft. And this thing is going to show us a form. What should the blog post be about? In what style? How many words? Okay, so we just built an application, and this thing is responsive. It'll run on mobile, run on desktop, or run on tablet. It's like it's ready to go. Okay, but it's not going to do anything, right? Like if we type some stuff in here and hit next, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to say, great, we're done. Success. We've completed successfully because we haven't added anything beyond it. But we've got the form, and we're now capturing these variables. I'm going to say plus. I'm going to say generate text. Okay, there's a reason this thing is at the top of the list. This is kind of the most common thing you'll be doing is calling a model. And here I'm going to say, I'm going to give it these variables, right? You remember how we do that? Best practices, we can say topic. Oops. And then we can end the topic, and then inside we can do topic, okay? And then we can say style, and style, and then, oops. And then here we can say style, okay? By the way, if you get this like color thing periodically, it does that, don't worry about it. We can then say number of words. Again, it doesn't matter what you type here. You could type num words, you could type, just as long as you're providing for the model some context. What are these things? And so now we're giving it all of this content. It's going to get injected into this when we make the model call, okay? And now we need to give it basically the command, the prompt. And I could say, write a blog post about this. I could say use Markdown, which like it's going to format it, yada, yada. And then here again, we could simply display it back to ourselves, to the user. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm just going to publish it. But again, you can run it in draft mode. And then, this thing is going to say, what should it be about? How AI will transform the world. And then in what style? Gary V. I always use Gary V because all of us have seen Gary Vaynerchuk. We kind of know his style. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe you guys can figure it out in chat. How would you describe Gary V's style? And then how many words? Choose any number of words you want. And then we can say next. And again, this thing is going to go and it's going to run. It's going to send all of that to the thing. Listen up, because I'm about to drop some real truth bombs on you. Right? It's Gary V. That's his style. Okay. And here you go. And like we got this thing here that's generated for us, right? And that's pretty cool that we can just create an application that we can then type things into a form and then go and behind the scenes use AI to do it. Okay, and so that's that. Let me show you another thing here that you can do. Whoops. Let me go back here. That we can do in our prompt. Oops, sorry, I'm adding a label here. So you can add these things called notes. And so you can sort of, they're just for you, so you can see them here. I just clicked this button by accident. So it wrote a blog post for us, but is this really the blog post that we want? Maybe we want our blog post to sort of be more specific in how it's formatted, right? And so we can provide to it like a sample, or you could say format it like this. You could say sample, you could say template, you could say format like this. It doesn't matter. You just need to tell it what it is you're building. And so here I'm going to say title, or here I'm going to say, catchy, provocative title. And then I'm going to say, whoops. Now I'm using these square brackets. This is just best practices. You don't have to use them, but we like to teach this to use them, so it's really good. And again, we're going to say this. We're going to say, funny subtitle. And then I'm going to say one paragraph, if I could learn to type, graph, a TLDR. And then I'm going to say main point. And then I'm going to say, subpoint times 3. 3 subpoints. Okay, and then I'm going to say conclusion with a call to action. Oh my God. My typing goes up and down. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it's like, what is happening? Okay, and so I'm going to publish this thing, and let's go ahead and run that thing again. By the way, I could just go here and say new run. And then let's do the same thing, how AI will kill us all. And then Gary V. And then let's do 1,000 words again. And now what we're going to get is something that is different. This is provocative. Why your robot vacuum is plotting against you. I guess it's funny. The TLDR, the main point, and 3 subpoints. And then I could have said, have many of these, the conclusion, etc. And again, so this is called templating. This has nothing to do with MindStudio. That has to do with a sort of more advanced prompting. And so you can learn this. We teach it, obviously, in our boot camps. And so it's really powerful. Once you understand how to prompt things, you can get what you want and like all of that. Okay, let's kill that. Okay, and so again, now you guys know, obviously, that you can just go here, go to my workspace, build a new agent, or go to these agents and make a copy. And like, you know how to do that. We got muscle memory. Let me show you some agents that I already have, so we don't have to build them. So you can just see how they work. Okay, so this is the monitor N8N terms of service. Now I've got it turned off right now because I want to show you how easy it is to create a schedule. You just choose the trigger and you say scheduled. You say add. You can have actually many scheduled for these things. And I could say, every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. And then here you got to choose, what time zone you're in. And then you can just say generate schedule, and it's going to give you a schedule of like every weekday. There it is. Yep, this is what we're looking for. We can just say save, and then this thing is going to run and do that. Okay. I'm just going to leave it off now so that we can kind of see it. Okay. Then there's a block over here that we have. If we click plus view all blocks. Actually, maybe this is a good time to really quickly run through some of these. We're not going to get through all of them, obviously, but you'll get some overview of what. So we've been using generate text. That means call a large language model. You can also call image models. You can also call video models. You can also call models that take numeric data and visualize it for you, generate charts, graphs, etc. You can have models create, give them an HTML template, and meaning you can completely control pixel perfect what the output is of the model, because it'll fill in any HTML template you give it with this dynamic content that's being generated. And so you can create like sales collaterals, leave behind PDFs, HTML presentations, whatever. You can pass another model or other models, we have many of them, you can pass them images. Like, so you can like upload an image, you can pass that to them, and it'll come back to you with, labels and all those other things. So you can do that. You can do text to speech, you can transcribe audio, you can give it a script and it'll create a 2-person synthetic conversational podcast of the script for you. You can scrape URLs. We already saw user inputs. This allows the agent to interview the user at runtime and ask the user a bunch of clarifying questions to disambiguate. You can query relational databases, document databases, vector databases, like any kind of data sources, basically. You can make HTTP requests, meaning call any kind of an API. Deep research is a block that allows you to do Google searching at scale programmatically. So you can search Google at large scale, and that's insane. This is like a ginormous unlock. Many use cases, we're not going to really get to it, or maybe for the last moment, if there's a chance, I'll show you our deep researcher agent. It'll blow your mind. But this is the block that I'm using in this called track website changes, okay? And so I'll show you what it does here in a moment. And then there's many others, like for flow control, obviously logic and checkpoints and menus and running other workflows and connecting to various social media services, reading and writing and updating those, and obviously Google services and sending emails, sending SMS, connecting to Slack, enriching emails. You get the point. That's the first 110, another 663 you can go through. Okay. By the way, if you don't see a block that you need for whatever reason, you just say request a connector, fill out this little form. Chances are before the end of the day, you will have that block created for you. Like, that's how easy it is. Okay. So track website changes block asks for a URL. Here I just have a static URL. This is the terms of service for N8N. Again, if people compare us to other platforms, 9 out of 10 times we get compared to N8N. The comparison typically is like N8N is like Linux and MindStudio is like Windows or Mac. It's the same thing. Okay. One just to sort of like gives you much more depth access to stuff and requires a lot of configuration. If that's what you're into, N8N is freaking amazing. It's awesome. If you just want to get shit done and you don't care about that, MindStudio blows it out of the water. Like, it's awesome. Okay, so, but I can just look at their terms of service. This already comes with the block. I didn't have to change this. And then I need to specify, do I want just like any delta in their terms of service, anything changed? Or something, in this case I wrote, any meaningful changes to terms of service, meaning punctuation is not meaningful. I could be much more specific here on what I want. And then you choose what happens when there are changes, has changes. It's going to go to this block. And what happens if it doesn't have changes, it just goes to the end block. Whoops. It just goes to the end block, right? So has changes, it goes to this analyze changes block. And if it doesn't have changes, it goes to the end block. Now, when it goes to the analyze changes block, it simply calls a model. It gives it the prior terms of service. It gives it the new terms of service. And then it says, compare these to one another and analyze the differences, return the following analysis of the differences. How do these changes impact N8N's competitive posture versus MindStudio? So not only do I get to track what's changing, I don't even have to do the mental work, like at the first step, to say, well, what might this mean to me? And then it packages all of that and just sends me an email. Okay, and so like, again, you can, and by the way, now that you have this, you could just make a copy of it. And what would you need to change to track some other thing? Just this, that's all you need to change. Like, everything else already done for you. And so like this stuff gets crazy. That's why I told you that Advanced Local's got over 300 agents built by one person. It's because of this kind of stuff. Okay, I'm going to pause here because I do want to show you some other things, but I see there are questions. So, Fasa, I think you're up. And you're muted.
Yeah, hi, Dmitry. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I had two questions, one on Google itself. So is this, does that go through SERP AI or does it directly go to Google? Because now if you have SERP AI or something like this API stuff, it does get expensive quite quickly.
Mhm.
And the second question is, when I look at your pricing, it says per run, for like you have 1,000 runs and 5,000 runs. Do you consider one run as the entire agent running or each step of the agent running?
Yeah, thanks for the questions. One run is an entire agent running, and so the thing that's gonna every weekday check terms of service, that's gonna be 5 runs a week that it's gonna do. So it's the entire agent, not each step. Answer to the first question is, yeah, there's a thing out there called SERP API, which I think is what you're referring to. You can absolutely use that as well. Again, MindStudio makes it easy to connect to any kind of third-party APIs and leverage those. Ours does not use that behind the scenes, so it uses something else. And for anything that's running, if you go to MindStudio and then My Workspace, on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of configuration here. Like you can invite people into your workspace and collaborate, obviously. You can even use self-hosted models and not have to use our models. And then you've got, budgets. You can set budgets and refills. And then there's a usage log, and you can see how much you're spending on each one of these things as you're running these. And also inside of the agent itself, if we look at, again, if we look at one of the agents we've built here, like the blog post generator, if we look at the debugger, we can see here when we are getting charged things, it's going to show up like this billing events, you see? Billing events, okay? So to generate that blog post cost us, just under 2 cents. The other thing we let you do is if you go here, we've always been in this automations tab. There are a bunch of other tabs here. We're not going to get through them here. But there's a tab called Profiler. And here I can create a bunch of these columns. And for each column, I could choose a different model, to run. Although earlier today, Gemini were having problems. We'll see if it works. And so I've got 3 different models, and I could say, write a poem, and I can compare them against one another, both sort of like quality, latency. Obviously, this one completed faster. There's the time, and cost. And so you can optimize for these things inside of MindStudio. We make it really easy for you to do cost controls there. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Other questions?
Can I raise
Danielle?
a few?
Please.
Janine? So some folks, actually, Derek asked a question around, hey, there's certain data I can't use AI for. Other folks are saying, hey, I can't use AI at all. Like, how can this still be valuable for them?
So you mean like you're precluded from using it in your work because of...
Or company data.
Yeah. Okay. So if you're not allowed to use your company data, my advice is don't use your company data. But there are countless other things that you do that have nothing to do with your company data. Again, like parsing long documents or doing deep research or being able to read YouTube videos instead of watch YouTube videos. Like you can build all of those kinds of things. The other thing you could do is you can ask your IT or security, whoever else, to come and talk to us. And then we get these things unlocked all the time. And so send them to us. We'll make them feel good. They'll give you access. Or they won't. Hard to predict depending on who they are. By the way, I'm certain that any company where IT is precluding employees from being more productive in this way is going to have really big problems. And people understand that. So there's a lot of pressure on, folks that used to be very cautious about things to figure out how to allow people to do this. Because again, these are superpowers and no mere mortals can compete with people that are enabled with AI in this way. Okay. Eric?
Yeah, question. How proficient do you actually have to be? Because I noticed there's some coding involved, and for designers who have no recollection of how to do any even CSS and HTML, how would you recommend to use the tool Would that be a stopgap?
There's actually, for the vast majority of things people build, there's not a single line of code that's required. The thing that I was showing you that looks like code, which is that XML, that's just a label. That's
Gotcha.
as like complex as it gets. Like there's no logic, for example, to do that. 4 places, though, let me share my, I'm still sharing my screen. We have built into MindStudio a capability. In fact, here, let me show it to you here. So I'm going to go to agents. I'm going to look at this deep research agent that I promised you guys we would look at. I'm going to make a copy of it. By the way, what does this deep research agent do when you run it? It's just a, let's run it here in this tab. If I say deep research and I say run, it gives me a form. What do you want to research? And then gives me a multiple choice. Do you also want me, once I've done the research, to generate, it's not record, to generate up to a 10-minute podcast of 2 synthetic people discussing this research? By the way, these things are awesome. And then you hit next. And then, and so what this thing does is it's a master Google searcher. We made a copy of it. So first of all, you can see this thing has a bunch of workflows, not just one workflow. So far, we've only dealt with one workflow. It has these user inputs that we've already learned exist. It also has these things called functions. And so these things right here are code. And so we support JavaScript and Python runtime environments. And so if you do write code, you can extend this thing infinitely to do countless other things. But if you don't write code, we have a little helper here called generate function. By the way, just like the other one, this is just a MindStudio AI agent. It was built using MindStudio and then integrated back into the MindStudio platform. You can speak English or any other language that it understands to this thing, and it will write the functions for you. You see? And so even if you need new functions, you don't need to write them. You can just have the agent, sorry, the MindStudio IDE, integrated development environment, itself write all of these things here. And here I'll show you the main flow of this one. And again, like this looks on one hand scary, on the other hand, we can understand it. It gets triggered. First thing it does is it has a logic block. It says, hey, is this user's request like valid request, or is it like a bunch of gibberish? Like some people like to flirt with deep researchers. It's like odd, what an odd world we live in. And so it says, listen, instead of wasting a bunch of tokens, I'm going to say you're not being serious. And then it's going to say, hey, try again. But if you do pass that gate, it's going to call a model. It's going to say, using the provided user request, here it gives it to it at the bottom, create, make it better, enrich this request. Humans are terrible at saying what they want. This thing calls a model and says, dumb human said this, make it smarter. And so it comes back and it overwrites this variable request and makes a better request. It then calls a model and it says, here's the request. There it is at the bottom. Oops. And go ahead and write a plan to leverage Google search in order to fulfill the user's request and store that in a variable called plan. It then uses this user context block. This is the one that allows us to interview the user. See, you can do kind of a shallow, medium, or thorough interview. You can do up to 100 questions. Don't do it. No user will ever answer 100 questions. And then it says, hey, like disambiguate. Like, here's the plan. Here's the request. Is this still a good thing? Do we need more sort of things out of it? And it stores it in a variable called user notes. And then again, these are those notes things that I told you about that you can add here. They're just for you so that you can kind of see, or if you share your agent, you can actually share remix links to your agents. And so you can let other people, your coworkers or friends or whatever, make a copy of your agents. You can just share a remix link to them. And when they open it up, they too will see these things. It helps you sort of like group things and explain what is happening here. Like this is research. This over here is, context gathering, etc. And so here it creates a search plan, and in it, the response is queries, and it creates an array of queries. It then uses a run workflow block to run a different workflow called run query, and it goes and it runs this workflow that, again, calls a model, creates permutations of the queries, uses a JavaScript function to enumerate in parallel and do a bunch of crawling, calling Google, picking the right results, crawling all those results. And then it launches another sub workflow called extract quotes. So you can nest these things. You get the point. So and again, I wanted to show you this, that these things have functions. It's easy. You can write your own. You can have the thing write it. You can have many workflows. And we just made a copy of it, by the way, so we kind of don't have to do any of this stuff. If we wanted to change this agent to only like search certain websites, well, we could go, here and specify that we only want this agent to search Reddit and publish it. Now we've just made a Reddit deep researcher, because again, Google is the window to Reddit, because Google indexes all of Reddit. And so we can use Google and say, only give me Reddit results and only use those, or like anything else. You get the point. I hope. Okay, does that make sense? Cool, Eric, you're muted, but I'm going to assume yes. Okay,
Yes.
Igor?
Hi, Dmitry. Building up on the question, maybe 2 questions back. In a environment where there's PII, PHI, how have you guys worked in that environment with that type of data? I think maybe that was where the question was going. And, similar to like NAN offline mode, is this 100% SaaS, or is there a way to like set up a RAG with an offline mode? Can you maybe touch on how you've dealt with those types of?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Yeah, so again, there's a bunch of ways to deal with it. Depends on the situation. One is for larger companies, we do allow them to run MindStudio on their premise or in their own private cloud. So we're not involved at all. We help them implement it, and they're running it basically on their own. So that's one. That's kind of an extreme situation. Again, mostly for like big companies that want to do that. Two is some people don't want to run public models. They've got their own models. We make it easy for them to connect to their own models and use those models instead of using the public models, or restrict by user basis inside that workspace. There's a lot of granular rights management of who can build agents, what kind of agents they can build, what kind of agents they can see, what kind of agents they can make a copy of, how much can they spend on a per agent basis or a per user basis or a per workflow basis. What models do they have access to? So all of these are available as configurations for organizations to control who can do what. Again, as for data, we allow you to ingest data, to connect data in a bunch of different ways. I'll just enumerate some. I'm not going to give you the exhaustive list. One is to just upload data using that data sources thing that I showed you, where you can upload up to 150 files at a time, although you can do that a bunch of times. And for those 150 files, it can be up to 5 million words. As soon as you do that, we automatically vectorize it, store it in a vector database, and allow you to query it using RAG, so retrieval augmented generation, and query that with fuzzy searches, nearest neighbor, et cetera. So that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is you can connect it to your data warehouse or data lake or databases and say, here's data that's available to AI agent builders within your organization that you can use in your agents when you're building these agents. So create these explicit connections and let them do that at runtime. You can connect to the web, as I showed you, with like scrape URL block. And so if something lives on the web, you can say that's the data source in a sense, and at runtime, grab that, and that's always going to be the latest, and it's there. You can call, you make HTTP requests, so call any API or webhook and get data from those kinds of sources. So again, it just depends on the use case and the organization of like what, when, how, but like, the org is in control, and obviously the builder themselves is in control of these things.
But you mentioned you do permit in like not an offline mode, but private cloud where the sources don't sit with you guys. We can control.
100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eric, your hand is still raised. Is that because more questions or?
That's a legacy. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. By the way, I'm going to try to pronounce your guys' names. Please correct me if I'm doing it wrong. Narendra?
Yes, right on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question: if I create agent here here, can I use it in my app to productize the app? And is this the best option to create agent and use it in my app that I want to productize, or I should do it in Amazon AWS? I'm just thinking.
Question's a little bit ambiguous. Let me answer it and see if I'm getting what you're asking. You're building an application, some kind of a native app on like mobile app. Mobile app. Okay, great. So you've got a mobile app, and you want to be able to use an AI agent inside of your app.
Yes.
MindStudio makes that dumb easy. You just build the agent, you configure the agent to expose APIs, and then you have your native app simply call those APIs at runtime and use it. And so the agent runs is again, it's actually just a cloud function. It's an on-demand cloud function that runs in the cloud. We run primarily in Amazon cloud. And then your native app, either from the front end or the back end, can connect via API to that cloud function and use it.
And integration will be seamless in terms of scaling or updating the agents or the database, etc. No
Yeah.
issue. Okay.
Yeah, really simple. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a bunch of use cases like that people use it for.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before I show you more stuff? Cool. All right, let's show more stuff.
I love it. I think everyone, I'm getting DMs on this side, and people are like, "Thank you so much for
Oh, yeah,
bringing him
awesome.
on. This is all really exciting." So thank you all. I know it's a Monday, and we have people from all over the world and time zones. So I think this is great.
Thank you. Okay, so a few more things. So I got a message on Friday, I guess, from one of our bootcamp graduates who is a recent business school graduate, and she's been for the last 6 months trying to get a job offer to be a venture capitalist. And a lot of people now, not just with her, but like people reporting where in interviews, interviewers are asking about AI, like what can you do with AI? And she, with her new skills, decided to build a few agents to show the interviewer what she can do with AI. This is one of those agents. By the way, after this, she messaged me and she says, I got my job offer. So the first one after this, after 6 months, the first one where she shows this, job offer. I'm like, let's wait for more. Don't take the first one. Don't swing on the first pitch. So these things are crazy. In fact, I'm doing an entire, I think it's a 1 hour I'm doing later this week. Danielle, maybe you could find it and chat it, where I'm specifically going to do a class for that. How do you, if you're trying to get a job, how do you demonstrate your AI proficiency to, in the interview process? And we're going to do this. And her name is Pau. Might have Pau join me on this. But this is her agent. She let me make a copy of it. And so I'm going to demonstrate it for you. This agent is similar to that agent that I showed you that I had in Airtable. It runs on, it creates in this case, a Google Sheet. Now, Google Sheet has a name, last name, fund name, title, email, LinkedIn profile. It also goes and grabs all the portfolio companies of those funds. And again, so this agent is for a venture capitalist to use when a venture capitalist is prospecting for partnering with other venture funds. That's the agent that she made. It's called Investor Hunter. And we're going to take a quick look at it. This agent has 3 workflows. Okay. Again, by the way, Pal participated in our 2-day boot camp. So she learned to do this in 2 days, full days, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so it has a start. This one is browser extension. Cool. The first thing it does is it uses this raw HTML. You remember we said this thing has the full text and these other things. It all has this raw HTML. Raw HTML means everything that makes the page work. So it's a lot more data. It gives it the raw HTML and it says you're provided with HTML from a LinkedIn search results page. Extract all the people in the search results and then return back structured data. We teach people to use JSON, which is what all the models prefer. So far, we've been using this text, JSON. And so we're going to get the first name, the last name, the fund name, the title, and the link to the LinkedIn profile. By the way, this is the reason she's using HTML here instead of page content, because the page content actually doesn't see the link. You can just see the words of the link. If you want to get the link, you got to look at the HTML. Okay, cool. And so that gets stored in a variable called investors. Then she is calling another workflow, this workflow here, and she's just passing in these investors that we just created. So it creates this array of investors. So there can be many investors. And it passes that into this workflow. This workflow does a bunch of things. The first thing it does is it's going to try to go find their email address using this block we have called find email. This block requires a domain name and the first name and the last name of the person. That's how it works. You need the domain name. But remember the domain name, and again, these things are meant to run on, she's using them like this, where she's configuring basically search results, filter them, creating the ICP, and now she gets this page and she can click the button, right? But like, there is no email here available. There's also no domain name available. So she's calling a model and she's saying, here is the investor. So this is one investor at a time this thing runs. You're presented with information about professional investor, analyze the information, provide the domain name where the professional investor may have a company email account. Return only the domain name, store it in the variable called domain. Then we use the find block here, give it the domain we just found here, give it the first name and the last name of the investor. And it comes back with this thing we're calling enriched investor. So it comes back with the email address and many other things about the investor. It has a lot of information that it comes back with. It then also calls another block from inside this nested workflow called research flow. And this one passes in all of this data we've collected and says, create a comprehensive list of all portfolio companies of this fund and return those as JSON with the company name, company industry, company location, company URL, last round of financing in this format, series whatever, date, and amount. See, and of course, that's what we get over here when we open these things up. We get company name, industry, location, URL, last financing, Series D, March 2024, undisclosed, Series E, April 2022, this, okay. Now, this one isn't formatted. She just left it as this JSON object. Of course, she could do many other things. But now another agent could go through here and do this. Okay, so you get the point. Like, you can create these things that have these nested workflows that do individual things and then proceed. And then it just generates this asset, updates the Google Sheets, and you're done. So this is Investor Hunter. This was created by, well, she's not a novice anymore. Last week, at the beginning of the week, she was a novice. Now she's a professional AI agent developer, getting jobs as a venture capitalist. Okay. And then I think one last thing I want to show you before maybe we take more questions. So I have 5 kids, which is crazy. I didn't have any kids till I was 45. Now I'm 56. I've got 5 kids. Oldest is 11, who's a boy. And then I've got the rest are daughters, 9, 7, and 3.5-year-old twins. My 9-year-old daughter loves slime. Does anybody have kids? And do you know what slime even is? It's like silly putty and stuff like that. She loves slime. Okay. And she loves to make slime. She learned on YouTube how to make slime. And she's also very entrepreneurial. And so I said to her, just so we could sort of, spend more time together, whatever. That's her, by the way. Her name is Una. I said, why don't we start a company for you? Una's Slime Co. Okay. And you can like make slime. We'll record videos of you making slime. And then, if somebody wants to buy it, maybe we'll sell them some slime. And so most of, not most, some of these videos are Una making slime, but other videos are not Una making slime. I don't know if you can hear sound. Can you hear music? And you can hear the like ASMR on it. No, Nadia can't hear it. Some can. You can hear like the crackling and stuff. Okay. So these things are AI generated. I'm going to show you the agent that does it. Okay. Now this is Una's workspace. So when you watch Una's videos, this is her workspace, including this light over here. You see there's like this like hashed light over here that shines. So this is actually her workspace. But these are not her hands making these videos. And let me show you how that agent works. I call it slime generator. Because not only does it make the videos, it actually comes up with ideas for the slime to do it. So it's a slime generator. Okay. It has 2 flows. The main flow, which actually doesn't really do anything other than like trigger it and says, create 7 slime videos instead of 1, because they're all 8 seconds long. And so 8 seconds times 7, just under a minute, we get that. So it creates That, by the way, the output of it is on, let's see, Instagram. Let's see if I can find the slime generator. It creates a Google Sheet that is, there you go, una slime co. So it creates, the date, obviously, the name, it gives a name for it, it creates a description, and it has links to each one of these videos without the music, with like all the crackling sounds and stuff. And here it is. And every time it runs, it adds 7 to this. As you can see, there's lots of these things here. Okay, so let's take a look at the agent. Again, it's actually absurdly simple. So it's basically this one workflow here. This is the entire workflow. It's just, a few blocks that are over here. Okay, let's look at them. The first block is a generate text block. And it says, create a text to video prompt for a unique slime by randomly combining elements from each category below. Each generated prompt should follow the structure, shot type, the description of the slime, the action sequence, the special effects details. So these are things that you would put in a video generation model prompt to instruct it to make a video, okay? And then it gives it again. Here's like some textures and some mix-ins that you can have. By the way, I didn't write this. I asked my generator here to write me in a prompt that would prompt a video model with the creation of slime, and it gave me this. Great. And we simply save this in a variable called prompt. We then go on and we use a generate video block. Again, not a generate text block, but a generate video block. And we simply give it the prompt. And then the output is going to be the URL of the video that's been created. That's how you get the thing back. You get the URL back, okay? And then you get to choose what model you're using. Here we're using VO3, but you can use others. You can specify how long you want it. Do you want it to include audio? What's the aspect ratio? And then you can give it this reference image over here. And let me get that, whoops, and open that up. And you can see I literally just took a screenshot of one of her videos. These are her hands. Didn't even clean it up. I said, this is basically the layout of this thing you're going to be on. That's the reference image, including, again, this reflection of the light on the glass. And simply by this one reference image and these prompts that are generated here, it generates a video, and it runs this 7 times. It also goes in for each video, generates the metadata. And so it brings back the name and the description of the slime that, again, get populated here. And then it just stores it, updates the Google Doc, with these variables. I mean, it's dumb easy. The whole thing took me 15 minutes to make. And of course, it's crazy that, one, it gives her like a bunch of ideas for, oh, by the way, then she takes these videos and she puts them into CapCut. And it takes her like 5 minutes because she likes to choose the audio track, and that, and like the order and all of that. But well, I could make it do that too, but like you got to give her something to do. And so this is really powerful, where it gives her like a bunch of ideas, and then sometimes this thing will generate the slime. She'll be like, oh, I'm going to go make that slime. And so she goes and like, makes that slime. So it's really, really powerful. All right, kids, we've got 15 minutes. A few things here. One, happy to take more questions. I suspect Danielle might have some more questions for me. 2, I rushed through this. You guys got drink from the fire hose of like random demos of this. We're scratching the surface here, okay? I don't know. We've seen 5% maybe of what this thing does. The rest is extraordinarily learnable. Everyone on this call can learn to be an expert in doing this. And you can do that completely on your own, completely free of charge. You can go do that. If you want more hand-holding, you want to be part of the community or whatever, you can go and do our boot camps and all that. We'll welcome you there as well, obviously. But in the time investment required to become an expert, so in a couple of hours of just self-study, you will feel quite proficient, where you'll be like, okay, I can build all kinds of agents. And you still have a lot to learn, but like you will feel capable, and you're gonna impress everybody at your work. You're gonna be the most AI knowledgeable person, more than likely, that you'll have these skills other people won't have. It's an extreme competitive advantage. If you're interviewing, you can demonstrate it. chances are you're going to get the job. If you want to get promoted, I don't know of any better way to do it than to showcase inside your organization. Look at these things I'm doing. People are going to ask you to train other team members. And, we've got a number of folks now that have been sort of promoted out of their groups. One was a salesperson, one was an HR person, one was sort of like a sales enablement person, have been promoted into like being the head of AI digital transformation for their company. So it's an awesome path for getting promoted if you want to do that. So again, in a couple of hours of self-study, you can wow people and transform your own workflow. In 10 hours of self-study, you can take it to an extreme level. And so that's awesome. And then again, in like a 2-day immersive boot camp, you can get even further than that. You can get level 1 certified. If you've got time and you want to you do 5-day boot camps and 30-day boot camps, you can go wild and spend a lot more time with it and come out again with like superpowers. Okay, so anyway, so all of that's available. You guys can find it or somebody can post the links. And again, Marilee, if you're going to do boot camps, take Marilee's code, 20% off on those things. So take advantage of that. Ankita?
Yeah, hi, Dmitry. Thank you for the presentation. So 2 questions. One was just if we are trying out the free product and launching draft agents, can be connected to things like personal email, personal Instagram, E-Trade, etc., or is that only in the paid mode?
Yeah, you can do a lot completely on the free plan, but some of those other triggers are only in paid mode. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I was
by the way,
trying to.
if you come to boot camps, along with the boot camp, we actually give you 1 year of our unlimited plan. And so you get that as part of the boot camp, right? By the way, you can potentially get your company to pay for your boot camp. And also with that, you get this like personal plan where everything's unlocked and unlimited and whatever. So like that's a great deal there. Okay, sorry, more questions?
Awesome. Yeah, I was just trying to build an E-Trade agent and trying to get it to summarize things, and then that it needs my login in order to access it. So that's what I was trying to do. Anyway, so that was one question. The other question was just if you could talk like high level about, and maybe it can be later or a resource or something, what's the architecture on this, on which it's built? Like how have you guys created this platform? Basically, it's pretty cool, very powerful. Just wanted to understand something about the layers.
Yeah, so we live in an amazing world where you can build things that are pretty standard and but very diverse. So again, we're a full stack application basically that runs in the Amazon cloud. It's got a bunch of sort of parts of it. It's got the builder itself, the IDE, and kind of all the functions of the IDE. It's got a bunch of services that facilitate deployment and packaging of these cloud functions. Again, that's how all of these agents get deployed. They're just web endpoints. Obviously, a bunch of backend services that run and do things, and internal tools, and kind of the runtime environment that facilitates the running of these agents, and sort of nothing sort of extraordinary there, other than just a lot of work and stuff, but pretty standard. What you might imagine this thing is. Yeah. Oh, by the way, we don't run any of our own models. We have 0 models. We are an orchestration layer. We connect to other models, either the ones we support or any private model. You can bring your own API keys if you want. Otherwise, we give you our API keys and we meter them. And again, pass the costs on to you with no markup at all, 0.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ankita, was that another question? No.
No, sorry, that was from before.
No worries. All right, or Danielle, or does anybody have any other questions or anything else I can help you guys with?
I have a question, Dmitry.
Please.
When we run this agent, how confident you are in terms of accuracy or evaluation or hallucination part?
Sorry, I'm having a bit of a hard time hearing. It's like a bunch of movement and just bad audio. How confident am I in what?
Yeah, how confident you are about your result, like evaluation or accuracy?
Uh-huh. Well, that's not up to me. That's up to you. When you call a model, you are interacting with that model, and so you have to know how to get what you need out of the model. And so that's a function of disambiguating things, making things really clear for the model. It's a function of, again, as part of that disambiguation, for example, you saw those XML wrappers that I put around variables, making it clear to the model what it is. It's a function of how you architect your workflow. You shouldn't give a model a giant set of things to do and expect it to do them the way you want them. You should break things up into pieces, and for each one of those pieces, call a model and give it a tiny bit of work to do that's very clear, right? That's when we give models too much work to do, where they fill in all the all the ambiguity with hallucinations, right? Or stuff we didn't want. That's our fault for giving them too much to do. Give them very precise, small things to do in a workflow, and generally you've got no problems. By the way, again, depends on what you're building. You might say, well, that's not good enough for me. It's not good enough to say that maybe I've got no problems, because if I do have a problem, something blows up. Great. Then that's also up to you to then create, again, mostly it's an architectural thing. You can create, typically they're known as like adversarial agents, where one agent does a job and another agent's like a QA agent, and it watches the output of this agent and is critical of it. And it's looking for, where is this agent hallucinating, for example? What's not true in this output? And so by creating these kinds of adversarial agents, you can, rest quite assured, meaning as assured as you could be with a human, you could rest quite assured, even better than that, of that you are getting accurate and appropriate output from your models. Again, we dive into this kind of stuff in the boot camps because we just have time to do it. So if you really want to dive into that, that's a good place to do that. Okay. Arshdeep, do you have a...
Yeah, thanks, Dmitry, for the demo. So my question is like the different elements that we are calling. So does that only calls the LLM model in the background, or do you guys have built an agentic process to, like for example, just you mentioned like chunking the data, or do we have to add some specific elements to chunk the data before we feed the context to those LLM models?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Can you give me an example?
Um, So, like you have this generate text element within your workflow, right? So, does that take care of all the chunking process to build the context in the right way, or is it just calling an LLM in the background and we have to take care of those context building by ourselves, like outside that element?
Yeah, it just does a model call, and we are responsible at providing context for it. We can provide it as part of the prompt, which is what we've always done.
Mm-hmm.
Here, let me share my screen again. And so by giving it these various variables, right? Let's see. Let's look at this. Whoops. There you go. We're providing a lot of context for it. We're saying this is what we want. We're saying here are a bunch of examples to pick from, base slime types, crystal clear slimes. This context we're providing. We're not just saying make a slime. We're giving it all this other context. This is one way to do it. This is in the block prompt, we call it. There's another thing here called system prompt. We haven't touched upon it. Again, we do it in the bootcamp, where you can give this agent a lot more context that then comes along with every block prompt you make. And so this is in a sense sort of like global instructions for the workflow. You can do different ones on a per workflow basis. So global instructions, and these are additional instructions of context. And when the model gets called, the model gets everything that's in the system prompt and then everything that's in this block prompt that's calling the model. So yes, we are all responsible for adding context to the model. By the way, the other thing is, if I made an agent and let's say we made one call to a model and it said, write a poem, and then it comes back with a poem, we store it in a variable called poem. And then we make another generate text block and then simply write, translate this into French. Now, if we were just talking to a model, right? If we were talking to a large language model, ChatGPT, we could say, write a poem. It would come back with a poem. And then we could type, translate it into French, and it would take the poem and translate it into French. That's not going to work in MindStudio. Every model call is isolated. And so when you make that second model call and said, translate it into French, unless you passed in the poem, it would come back and say, translate what into French? It doesn't remember that it ever, and even if it's the same model, that it ever gave you a poem. But again, this is by design. This is the right way to do it. And so you are responsible for passing in the context in a bunch of different ways that you can do it during the building, the architecting of the agent.
Got it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, next, Narendra.
So yes, I think my question is, if this is what it's really, really impressive, what can I expect in the boot camp?
Well, you can expect a lot of this, and then cohorts. And so we interact in Slack. So we have really active Slack cohorts. We've got curriculum. It's all project-based. We teach all the fundamental skills. You guys do projects. We have build hours where, every day where you can show up with your project if you're having trouble and do it. We have mentors now. We've got over 24 folks that are graduates of prior boot camps that are like teaching assistants that come and help you inside the boot camp in doing it. There's a bunch of like documentation of it and a bunch of like testimonials from lots of people. Danielle can share in chat here like some information on that. But feel free and reach out to us. We'll happily tell you about these boot
And
camps.
just want to jump in because some people are asking. So there are two different bootcamps. One is my bootcamp, which is AI product management with 3 certifications, and then Dmitry's, that's very much specific about what you said today and agents and actually building products. We're friends. Like Dmitry comes to my bootcamp, I go to his bootcamp. So I think it just depends on what you're interested in. And just so you know, because a lot of people are asking for links and all these things, we'll send an email wrap up with like all the links with the discounts right afterwards. But we encourage you, connect with us on LinkedIn, keep the conversation going. But yeah, we'll send you the link, and it's 2 different ones that are both lovely and created for the audience, which is you in mind. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Let's take one more question and then we're gonna log off. Sagar.
Hi, Dimitri. Thanks for the demo. Quick question is, you showed us the way in which you could build automation. You could build these agents manually and then connect them together through like a workflow, like a visual diagram.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you could actually give it a prompt and it starts building these blocks for you based on your input requirements?
Absolutely. Let's quickly show that. We're going to say my workspace, build new agent. And so far what we've done is we've configured the start block and we started doing it. But if we look down at the bottom, there's a little button that says generate agent. And this, you won't be surprised, is just a MindStudio AI agent. In fact, we can even like make a copy of it and do it. So the architect that builds MindStudio AI agents, it's just an AI agent that's been built in MindStudio. And we can simply write something, whatever we want to write, every day, monitor a competitor's website for changes, and if there are significant changes, analyze them and send me an email. Okay, and then you can say go, and this thing is going to say, oh, you silly human, like this is so ambiguous. And so it's calling a model behind the scenes, and it's saying, well, do we need to know more? It says, I'd be happy to build an agent for you. Great use case. To refine your idea, I need a few more details. Which competitors' websites? What kind of changes? You answer it, you push the button, it builds you the entire workflow, puts all the blocks on there. You can then, now that you know how to do it manually, look at them, configure them. Again, it takes a couple of minutes for it to run and do that. And but that's what that is. By the way, there's a bunch of other of these types of interfaces in MindStudio we didn't cover. Like I told you, you can build completely custom front ends. Like the ones we built was like this dumb white form with these like text fields. That's not your brand. That's not what you want. It wasn't really interactive. It's just a dumb form. But we've got an interface built into that user input block also at the bottom there, where you can build, you can vibe code, you can go back and forth with it, and it'll build for you single page applications using React. And so these are interactive, fully skinnable. You can have them be multi-page, for example, multi-page forms or whatever. And so you can build completely custom front ends. It's crazy. Like nobody would ever know that you built this in MindStudio. It's like a completely custom front end. You can also build completely custom outputs. Like what's the return? We've seen it like return some markdown. That's not what we want. Oh, here quickly, I'll show you. So the return of the deep researcher, the output of the deep researcher, you remember the inputs, like what do you want to research? What's the output? The output of the deep researcher is an artifact. By default, it's yours private, but you can also make it public. This one was made public. So it generated this image. It creates an executive leadership paragraph. It gives you 10 takeaways. It created a 51-minute read. This one didn't create a podcast. If it did, it would be here. Everything has citations on it because none of this data comes from the models. It goes and searches Google at scale and crawls all the websites and does another pass. It also searches Google images to source images of, in this case, this person, the senior vice president at Rockwell Automation that somebody ran it on. It pulls out key points, you know, highlights.
You're not sharing?
Oh, no. Thank you, guys. Oi. Okay, we'll do it quickly again. It creates the image, summary, takeaways. It's a 51-minute read. Everything has citations because, again, all of this data is coming from the web. It uses Google image search to go and find images of this, again, this person in this case, all citations, pulls out, you know, key points and highlights. If there's numeric data, it automatically generates charts and graphs. So this is like data that was automatically turned into this graph. And then again, this thing is a 51-minute read. And this is the output of our agent. And at the bottom of all of it are all the sources. And so this is what it's pulling from this source, and this is what it's pulling from this source. And so you get all of these things as the output. And all of this is structured, obviously, like it's interactive. You know, it's not just markdown, you know, it's got positioning and all of that. And this is because this is a automatically generated single page application that's rendering the output of that deep research agent that goes off and does deep research on anything. So you can create countless custom things with this. All right, guys, listen, I'm always around. I'm a total nerd. I love geeking out on this stuff. Like one of my favorite things is to interact with people who are learning stuff. Just find me on LinkedIn, ping me, ask me questions. You know, if you want to spend more time with me, you know, get into one of these boot camps and excited to get to know you guys.
Thank you all so much. Join our boot camps, learn more. I really appreciate you all for joining. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Had a lot of fun. Thank you, guys. Take care.